All right, good evening, everyone. So we're going to be jumping right back into our Unit 4 on ionic bonding. What we're going to be looking at tonight is just that chart problem that we decided to skip last week so that we could just look at how we make our ions overall, how we name them. So hopefully last week's assignment wasn't too tricky for us. Remember that our metals always make our positively charged ions, and we name them simply by the name of the element. And our anions, our negatively charged ions, are our nonmetals, and they get to end in "ide," which should be relatively easy for us because we practiced with that last unit. Okay, so we're going to jump right into that chart problem, and here is the chart problem that we are going to look at. Okay, so we see that we have a number of boxes we have to fill in. We have our symbols, our protons, our neutrons, electrons, and mass number. But now we have charge as well, which we didn't have in our last unit. Okay? If we recall from last week's notes, charge simply comes from the difference between your protons and your electrons. So really quick, if you looked at column number 1, and we're going to do this together later, notice that your protons and your electrons are not the same. Our previous chart problems were easier for us because those numbers were always going to be identical, but now they won't unless you have an overall charge of 0, which sometimes does happen. Here we see that we have 2 extra electrons. Okay, we have 16 protons and 18 electrons, which means our electrons, which are negative, we have 2 more of. So we're going to see that the charge for that element ends up being 2 minus, 2 being the difference between 16 and 18, and minus because there's more electrons and protons. But we'll get to that later. So let's jump right in. What we always want to do first is look to see if there's any boxes we can automatically fill in without any math, any periodic tables, nothing. So this does require a bit of review for us to remember that right here in our bottom left corner of our full symbol, we're going to have our atomic number, which is our number of protons. Okay, so this zirconium ion is going to have 40 protons because we have 40 in that bottom left corner. The top left corner, hopefully we remember, is our atomic mass. So our mass for this zirconium ion is going to be 96, okay, which is our protons and our neutrons, which we'll tackle in a little bit. Now in our top left corner, we have charge. So see, we filled in the charge at the bottom of the screen of 2 plus. Before, these were always 0, and sometimes we would remember to fill them in and sometimes not. Now we have to because they're going to influence our electron number. These are the only boxes we can automatically fill in without any sort of math or a periodic table handy. But we do have a couple boxes we can do with basic math, meaning addition and subtraction right now. And those are going to be anything we can do with our mass number or our neutron number. So let's look at column 2. We see that we have 35 protons and 46 neutrons. Our mass is always going to be our protons plus our neutrons. So right here, we could add these two together and get 81, which would tell us that our mass number for this particular element is going to be 81. Similarly, we have 3 boxes on here where we can use kind of a flip of that math to look for our neutron number. So if our mass number is protons plus neutrons, and I have mass, 35, and I have my protons, I can simply subtract them to get my overall proton number, or overall neutron number. So here, if I did 35 minus 16, I'd get 19, which I see is going to be my neutron number for column 1. Okay. In column 3, I have a mass of 96, and I'm going to subtract 40 from it, and I get 56. And in our last one, hopefully we can see that mass at the bottom, it's 127. We're going to subtract 53 from it, okay, and we're going to get 74. Okay, so this again, these are my what we call basic math problems, but you know, it does involve a little bit of calculation. And now we can see that we actually only have 7 boxes left to fill in. Now we always tackle full symbols at the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to add right now the new stuff, which is charge. Okay. So again, from our beginning of our video, we remember charge is just going to be the difference between our protons and our electrons. So let's use the one we already talked through. In column 1, we have 16 protons, or 16 positives, and we have 18 electrons. Okay? So the first thing we do is we look at the difference between those two numbers. So the difference between 16 and 18 is 2. So automatically I know my charge is going to have a 2 involved. And then I look at which one of these do I have more of. So I do have more electrons, which means my charge is going to be 2 minus. Okay, and that's the charge that I see there in my bottom left corner of my chart problem. Now, the other three columns are not nearly as simple because I don't give you the protons and the electrons, but I give you the protons and the charge. Okay, so let's try one of those. So in column 2, I have 35 protons or positives, and I know in the end, my charge has to be 1 minus. So if we know the difference is 1, we have two options. We can either make this number right here 34, we can make it 36. But then I have to look at this. This tells me that I have to have more electrons than protons because I have to have that negative charge in the end. So I'm going to choose 36 so that my electron number is 1 bigger than my proton number. So I end up with an electron number of 36. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for my other two columns. In column 3, we have 40 protons and we have a charge of 2 plus. So I know that this missing number has to either be 38 or 42, but I look at this. This tells me that this proton number has to win. That one is what I have to have more of. So I'm going to choose 38 as my electron number. Okay. And then without me doing the math on the board, let's look at that last column. Okay, we have 53 protons and our charge is 1 negative, which means we have to have more electrons than protons. So my electron number is going to end up being 54. Okay, so that's how I add charge into my chart problem. Okay, now I need to do my full atomic symbols. Remember, full atomic symbols are going to be based on your proton number. So if we look at our periodic table, we'll see that element number 16 is sulfur. I'm going to end up with 16 in the bottom left corner and 35 in the top left, my atomic number and my mass number. And here I'm now putting my charge in the top right. In column 2, we look for element 35. We see that element 35 is chlorine. It's not chlorine. Great, and that is a typo. I am sorry, my friends. Element 35 is bromine, so that should be a Br right there in that atomic symbol area with a 35 in the bottom left corner and an 81 in the top left and a -1 charge. And then last but not least, we look for element 53, which is iodine. So we're going to put an I in the center. We're going to put a 53 in the bottom left corner, 127 in the top left corner, and a -1 charge. Notice that when we have a -1, we just put the minus sign. Okay, and that's it for tonight's notes, my friend. We do have a periodic handy for you as well. So I hope this is okay. You want to review through these notes, and I'll see you in office hours for questions before you try your chart problem quiz. Thanks, everyone.